Hey. Sorry, I'm just reading over this. I don't want to say anything too bad. Listen, for some reason, lately I've felt the need to explain something, and I know this thing is kind of self-explanatory, but these videos are made in good faith, and I'm not seriously trying to demean anyone who worked on these games or anything like that when I call something stupid and say a swear. Like I said, usually this sort of thing goes unsaid, and up until recently I haven't felt the need to say it. But to my knowledge, 2 out of my last 3 videos have been seen by someone who had a hand in making the game I was talking about. Obviously I don't expect that to happen, but I can't help but feel a little bit rude when I tell someone indirectly to their face that they should be jailed for war crimes, even if it's true. Point is, as a friend of mine put it, I am just a 2-subscriber internet funny man, with big quotations around the funny. If you're taking me seriously, you're doing it wrong. Except for the parts that you're supposed to take seriously. I don't know. You know what I mean, alright? ASTRONEER is an open-world base-building survival crafting game, a bunch of terms that probably set off alarms in the head of anyone who dared gaze into the abyss that is early access. Though the game is about 25% less albabasikiska, because the survival part is really only alluding to the fact that it is possible to die. There's not really a lot to survive, but we'll get back to that. It's still being updated, and I want to emphasize that because a lot of this video is just going to sound like me saying the game is bad and you shouldn't buy it, when in reality what I'm trying to say is that this game has a lot of potential, but also a lot of problems that I have very little faith are going to get solved anytime soon. Because for 5 years, the updates that have been coming out add things that are situationally useful at best and almost always fail to solve the core issues the game has. Sorry, that was a bit more windy than I thought it'd be. This is a sandbox, a factory kind of game. I don't really know what you'd call them. Collect resources, make machines, and make your life easier. The actual goal of ASTRONEER is mostly subjective. Don't get it twisted, there is still an end to the game, in the same way that beating the dragon is the end of Minecraft. It rolls the credits, but it's not the last thing to do. You only beat the game when you achieve an arbitrary goal or set of goals you've put out for yourself, and this game is no different. For some, completing all the missions or activating all the gateways is the end. For others, it's accruing so much of every resource that you'd never have to leave your base again. Could even be all of the above. I was the for some in that statement, as in all I did was finish all the missions in the game, as of recording this, because honestly, I didn't feel like there was much game left for me to play. Not to downplay the amount of game you do get while you're doing these missions, which tend to consist of walking around to get resources, to build a thing, to make a resource, to build a thing. Honestly, it's hard to even say that doing these missions are really worthwhile. I finished the main quest line and decided to do the other leftover missions just in case there was something I was missing. They have you build all these things and refine different materials, so I figured there was something that they were building up to. But no, there wasn't. Once you do the last one, nothing happens. You just turn it in and that's it. Not even a congratulations. So part of me believes that these are just intended to be a guide of some sort before they let you loose to do your own thing. However, considering how little there is to do outside of the missions, doing your own thing is kind of limited to making semi-automatic machine chains, blowing shit up, and collecting resources. 3 things that you've probably already been doing since you started the playthrough. The point is, this game's post-game is just its early game, mid-game, and late game minus the game satisfaction of actually gaming getting somewhere. Fuck. But Mokatan, I hear you saying, you said that Minecraft does the same thing. Why are you singling out ASTRONEER? Well, it does do the same thing. The difference, however, is that Minecraft is a world with goals in it, while ASTRONEER comes across more as a goal with a world built around achieving it. And yes, I'm aware that comparing a game like Minecraft with a giant team and giant budget behind it to a game like ASTRONEER with a much smaller team and a comparatively smaller budget is stupid, so that's where I'm going to stop doing those. Getting back on track, there are 7 planets to explore, each of them having their own set of resources, terrain, and that's it. What I meant when I said the world is built around a goal is that each of these planets have very little purpose outside of getting resources to finish a mission or activate a thing. To finish one of 2 missions where you activate a thing on each planet. These planets are mostly devoid of life, though there is one thing that I neglected to mention up until now. I was digging through a cave and I heard a noise. Caves are normally very quiet, so it really stuck out. I looked around to try to catch a glimpse of what made that noise, but I didn't find anything, so I turned around and continued digging my way out, when I could have sworn I heard that noise again. I'd started to get tense and really paranoid. I was pretty sure there was nothing dangerous in this game, but what if I had just not encountered it yet? I'd considered that and went back to look just to make sure, and it turned out to be a plant. The video I was watching made a noise at the same time the plant did, and it tripped me up a little bit. I couldn't help feeling a bit silly, but I was also slightly disappointed. When I first played this game, I was completely blind and perhaps foolishly let myself believe that there was more to this world than there actually was. But I guess that boundless optimistic curiosity led to my downfall, because when I went to look for those things that I thought were there, I realized that they were never there to begin with. Whoops, that was a snippet from last week's diary entry. Most of my actual drive to explore came from there being multiple planets and the hope that there would be something to find, but all 7 of them just end up being reskins of the same planet, with the only relevant difference being what resources they have on them, which I personally believe is the biggest issue the game has right now. You have more fun thinking about what could be out there than you do actually going out and finding the nothing that there really is. The most interested I felt was when I saw what I thought was a giant creature in the distance, only for it to turn out to have been just a plant. I see this as the biggest problem because it seems like a lot of other issues stem from this one. The lack of post-game comes from a lack of any interesting content outside of the missions, and to tell you the truth, before they were added, I'm not even sure what people really did in this game. The planets being so homogenous also means that there's no real reason to build a base on any planet that isn't the one you spawn on, seeing as it has the most consistent power output, and you don't have to spend an hour making round trips and wasting more resources just to establish half the infrastructure you'd have if you didn't move in the first place. Once you get to a point in the game where you can either consistently make consumable thrusters or obtain a reusable one, going to other planets becomes far more of a chore than anything else, but not nearly enough of one for you to consider moving. Because unless you double down and transfer everything to that other planet, you're gonna end up going back to your main base anyway. They become a way to gatekeep resources and certain objectives and do very little outside of that. And while we're on the topic of planets, God, can there please just be a simplified planet map? This is a cool UI for picking your location and whatever, but coming from someone who wore a chain in middle school, you have to decide the days that you want to look cool and the days you don't want Trent to bully you. Looking at the planets is oh so pretty up until I want to go to one of them and can't because there's another one in the way. And then I actually manage to go there and it does this. And I get there, but I have to sit there orbiting the big stupid rock for 10 seconds just to get to the landing spot I'm looking for. The UI is something I enjoyed looking at, but most of the time just ended up getting hassled by and wishing that it was simpler. It is stylish, and from an aesthetic standpoint I do like it, but after the 5th time in the research catalog, slowly scrolling through every recipe, trying to find the one thing the mission wanted me to build, you start to see where I'm coming from when I say, for the love of God, just give me a grid and a fucking search bar. The backpack is also not free from these UI problems, and it hurts because it's this close to being perfectly fine. But for some fucking reason, someone decided to make it a physical object, as in, it is affected by the amount of space you have around you, meaning that if you're too close to a wall, your backpack will also be too close to a wall and make your terrain tool completely inaccessible as a result. Okay, I've been advised to not say that people deserve the death penalty anymore, so I'm gonna let this one slide. These things do come across as kind of minor problems, and honestly, I'd agree with you. The thing is though, reading over my notes, the amount of kind of minor problems that normally aren't big enough to warrant their own sections were starting to combine into one big problem that definitely warranted its own section. And as a PhD holder and professional in finishing, don't make it weird, I believe I wouldn't be alone in suggesting that this game suffers from a bad case of not finished-itis. Playing this game is quite similar to dating a girl named Audrey, because chances are, you're in for a pretty quirky experience. Trees will completely block your vision. The game will micro-stutter very often and for very odd reasons, like your vehicle being flipped over. And speaking of your vehicle, these tether things that provide oxygen and power when you're away from your base are supposed to be intangible and allow your vehicle to pass straight through them. But for some reason, seemingly at random, they will just gain collision and get knocked over. And among other things, a mission randomly completed itself. I didn't fulfill the requirements, it simply decided that me considering doing it was enough. I could go on like this, but I'm not exactly trying to be Joseph Anderson here. For the sake of brevity, I'm just going to narrow it down to 3 that I really want to mention. 1. The game crashed. I don't know why, but I did lose progress. 2. I got trapped underground for 20 minutes because I guess I was just supposed to know that you can't dig through this rock without an upgrade, despite nothing pointing to that conclusion except for the fact that you can't do it. Meaning that if you're like me and innocently jumped into a cave only to lose the exit as you are accustomed to believe doing so is fine up until that point, you wouldn't know until it's too late. And 3. Yeah, so imagine if that happened to one of my important platforms, like the one that has, I don't know, all my resources on it. Once again, these were not the only things that happened, and if I listed all of them in detail, we'd be here all day, and you know I don't especially love being here. The point is, the game is, put nicely, a bit rough around the edges. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy playing it to some extent. I like that it's quiet and calm. I like that I can leave the game on, go out for a walk, and be able to come back and pick up where I left off without the fear of getting killed by a zombie or a zombie. It's a great game if you want to just sit back and play a game while watching Netflix. But frankly, that's all the mileage I got out of it, and I already have a lot of games like that. I would say I have faith that this game will eventually get better, but honestly, like I said at the start, it's been in its rough around the edges state for around 5 years now. So judging it based on what it is right at this moment, at worst, it's repetitive, grindy, pretty boring, and has very little to do. At best, it's a way to kill time when you don't want to do nothing, but there's nothing to do. If you aren't the kind of person who would sink 1,000 hours into it, chances are you're barely going to put in 50. I'm not going to tell you to buy it. In fact, I'm not going to tell you not to buy it either. It's not healthy to root your decisions in the opinions of people you don't know.
Planetary.